and welcome to The One Show with Julia Bradbury
and Matt Baker. Joining us tonight is the director who's not afraid of confronting the dark side of human nature, be it war with Platoon or murder in JFK.
Or financial greed with this guy.
Greed, for lack of a better word, is good. Greed is right. Greed works. Greed clarifies, cuts through, and captures the essence of the evolutionary spirit.
Please welcome the very giving Oliver Stone.
Hey.
Good to see you, Oliver.
Great to see you. Now, Michael Douglas was so convincing as Gordon Gekko. He is some people's hero and some people's villain. But why do you think his character has endured 25 years on? He still resonates with people.
Well, I think we got more greedy as a society, and he represents that. The corporations in the United States, and I suppose in England too, just got bigger and bigger, and the rules were more elastic, made more elastic, and deregulations come in.
Yeah, well,
Settled.
actually, it's an interesting point, because do you feel any responsibility for the global financial meltdown? Because to be fair,
it's your fault.
I mean, you did create him as a role model.
If anything, you know, we forget this now, but the film was criticized by the critics in America as being overly moralistic.
Right.
So the tendency at the time was that people were starting to drift into more relaxed behaviors and more acceptance of that kind of mentality. I don't like Gekko. I have to be very straight with you.
Yeah.
But those kind of characters started to make the front pages of magazines and more volume than ever by the 1990s.
So your point.
We were worshiping them like gods.
Does he still
I don't
exist?
find that could be healthy for a good society.
Does he still exist?
Of course it exists. If anything, the celebrity culture for wealth, the love of money is sickening to me. I mean, it's all over. And you either see great beauty, or if you see a man occasionally, either a sports star or he's a filthy rich. And it's not that they're wiser than anybody else. They just made more money. Yeah. So we've lost our values in the U.S. and England has played a large role in this. Now I'm not criticizing England but you did deregulate banking rules enormously. So you allowed a lot of wealth to accumulate in London. London may have prospered.
London. Yes, we're talking about that. It's good.
Well, we haven't just invited Oliver Stone onto the show to blame him for the financial meltdown of the world. We're also going to talk to him about his new documentary project, The Untold History of the United States. We'll be doing that in a few minutes.
Yeah, which is some piece of work, Oliver. It really is. But anyway, it has to
keep you updated.
Now, Oliver, you are, of course, known for blockbusters like Born the 4th of July, Nixon, but for the last sort of 5 years, you've dedicated your life to this documentary telling the untold history of the United States. Now, in your mind, then, which bits are untold and what do you cover?
Well, we use the word untold in the sense that it has been headlined in some cases, and it's been mentioned in the papers. It was news, it came out, and it went. It was unlearned.
Right.
It wasn't absorbed, it wasn't digested. My daughter and all my children have been through these schools, and I see by the 2000s that the United States has a different view of itself than what I think is a proper worldwide view of the United States. So,
because you said that you were perturbed by the history that your children had
For example, my daughter's textbooks about the atomic bomb dropped on Japan goes into the usual explanations that it had to be done. It was the climax of World War II. We won World War II because the Japanese were basically too fanatic, and we would have taken casualties to invade. We take another point of view. We tell you for the first time, many Americans, about the Russian invasion of Japan at the same time.
Yeah.
We talk about these factors, as well as the air bombing of Japan and Europe by the United States. We bring into the darker, what you call darker at the beginning of the show is true, but we're trying to seek out the truth and present these young Americans with a true history of what is happening.
And a different perspective.
And the atomic bomb's significance in this world, and why it did not have to be used.
Yeah.
And why it gave us a sense, the U.S., of might and right at the same time. The might makes right. It's a cliche, but it's damn true.
And it's an astronomical syllabus of stuff as well. I mean, there's kind of 10 hours. You've got a book going along with this, and it is rammed with facts, one after another.
We had to keep the facts because, I've been making films, taking dramatic license, but this was an attempt at the end of my, hopefully not too close to the end, but near the end of my life, to write the record and say, look, here, for my children, I want to do this. Actually, this 12-hour series.
Yeah.
And I want to say, this is the way I grew up. This is what I believed. This was my history. From 1946 to about mid-80s, I believe, the American triumphalist narrative that they gave us in school.
Yeah.
All the material in the series is genuine archive, and here's a clip that shows the moment where President Roosevelt risks neutrality to help Britain.
Roosevelt promised in the 1940 election that no American boys would go to a foreign war. Yet he now believed that Hitler was intent on world domination. And with neutrality legislation on the books and military preparedness at a low level, Roosevelt nonetheless made several bold moves. Bending the rules, he unilaterally sent 50 old destroyers to Britain.
Which archive are you most proud of uncovering and using in the series?
We went to 5 different countries. The U.S. stuff that you see in Chapter 1, a lot of it is at Los Alamos, where we tested the first atomic bomb, and you see reenactments that were done by our government of Robert Oppenheimer and General Groves weighing the uranium. I think you have a clip here, but it's very the reenactments. They're terrible actors. It's very clumsy, but I think we got a hold of them. They're rare. It's rare to see that. And also in Japan, we went to Japan. We found great stuff on the atomic stuff, as well as in Russia for the later years. So we went to.
Yeah.
History is a pack of lies agreed upon. That's a phrase that comes up in episode 1.
That's
What's the biggest lie that's revealed in episode 1, do you think?
In episode 1 would be that it goes into the beginnings of World War II. And, the United States came in late to the war. And the Soviet Union bore the brunt of it. And the Soviet Union essentially beat the Germans. I would say that comes through in Chapter 1. And in Chapter 2, we get into the U.S. succession issue of Henry Wallace being replaced by Harry Truman. And then the bomb in Chapter 3, and why that's dropped, and why it was not necessary to drop.
Well, you said that you made it for your children. Have they seen it, and what do they think of it?
Of what?
Of your children. You said that you made it for your children.
Yes.
Are they happy with it?
Yeah, they loved it.
They loved it.
I'm saying
they had to say that, let's be honest.
Well done, Dad.
17 years old, I think, is the cutoff point. I think sometimes 15-year-olds can get it. Yeah. But I did it consciously. As you saw, the cutting in that little clip was fast.
Yeah.
To keep it
just
interesting.
To keep it moving and to keep
we have movie clips, we have music, and no talking heads. There's nobody sitting on camera telling you what to think.
And your voice. And your voice throughout it.
And it is. That was based on World at War, which is a great British series I saw in the 1970s. I was mesmerized. It went on for 20-some hours about World War II. Beautifully done. And I said, why can't we do the same thing on our guerrilla budget? And I used my voice as a template to work the editing, but they liked it so much that we ended up leaving it in. But,
and it's a great series to sit and watch with a notebook as well. But anyway, it's
a sexy series. You can watch it for 3 hours and then make love with your partner in a log cabin.
How strange is your love making? I must say.
You heard it there. Well, I think we should move on.
I know.
From
let's
there,
watch some
because
bombs
it's time
drop
now for our own little bit of Second World War history. Now, in a moment, we're going to be joined by Mike. Be on display at the New Forest Centre in Linda. So if you're around, pop along and have a look.
Now, as much as we all adore the instant gratification of digital photography, there are certain things that you lose. You may never, for example, experience the thrill that Oliver Stone had when he found a hoard of underdeveloped pictures that he'd shot from the Vietnam War years later.
Yeah, well, we will see the results of that in just a minute, Oliver. But first, let's transport you all back in time to an age when the only way to see your photos was to get them developed.
I remember it well.
And that was the joy. You gripped to that film there, Oliver. Now,
I was,
some people may not know this, but you yourself, I mean, you did serve in the American forces in Vietnam.
Yes.
And that was where a love of photography started.
Yes, in fact, I was a writer before I went into I thought I was a writer, but I couldn't write during that war because I was always wet.
Soggy paper.
It got soggy. So towards the end of my tour, I finally got a camera, and because it was an incredibly beautiful place, Vietnam, and I took a lot of pictures, snapshots as I was going, and many of them were lost.
You couldn't obviously get them developed, though, then at the time. Did you have to?
Not really, no. I think I did it later, but many of them were lost. Some of them got wet.
And then
many of them were
this
lost.
fascinating find.
40 years later, I was looking for a website. They were trying to put some pictures together, and I saw an old shoebox that said 1950s, and I shied away from it. Then I went back and I looked again, and there it was. It was this 1960s stash, and quite amazing. But I love
these are the results here, Oliver. We've got the screen there. If you could just talk.
Who is this handsome young man?
He's one of my good friends. Yes.
Yeah.
Very Apocalypse Now. What an image, a striking image.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you remember of that then, looking up and seeing those images? And who do you remember this person here?
The Montagnards are all over. They were poor. They were tribal people. These are the shanty towns around the 1st Cavalry Base Camp. That's a typical patrol going out on jeeps.
Wow.
You must have been thrilled when you discovered that.
At the ocean, near the ocean. What?
You must have been thrilled when you discovered that shoebox.
Yeah, it was. The faces are all long gone, but it's a memory. I love film, and I hope we don't just go to digital. I like to keep negative.
Yeah.
Miranda Kristofnikov there, and we have to stress, as we said in the film, that this is currently just a proposal. We've got one more Oliver Stone photograph before we leave.
Yeah, thanks for showing us your Vietnamese photos, but this one here of your desk, Oliver. Now, what is this fascination with paper clips?
Paper clips, I like the plastic ones with the colors.
Yeah.
I despise staples because I always have to chop up the paper to get the
well, listen, Oliver, in
and
homage to you, we've put our scripts with a little plastic paper clip. Anyway, there we go.
Yeah, the last scripts. The Untold History of the United States, not paper clips, starts on Wednesday, the 17th of April at 9 o'clock on Sky Atlantic HD.
Tomorrow, spring is here. Well, at least it will be on The One Show.
See you then.
We'll be joined by the evergreen Sarah Brightman. Good night.
Bye-bye.